escrow and title business for over 25 years. So, without further ado, Jane.
So as you can see, I come just to speak. I don't have an outline or anything. I always think it's best time to have a little discussion and have question and answers too. To start with, what is deed fraud? Basically, it's when somebody forges a document and files it of record in the county. It happens more than you think. I think last month there was news where there was somebody who had filed like 75 different fraudulent deeds. And it's not, unfortunately, if a document is notarized, it can be filed for record. It's not, the county clerk doesn't check to make sure the names, the signatures, none of that is done. If you submit it and it's notarized, the county clerk will record it if you pay the fee. How can this be prevented and what can you do about it? That's where the discussion starts. I know that everyone's heard on the radio the company where you can buy a policy that protects you from title fraud, and I can't remember the name of it now, but you hear advertisements on it. And I get the question all the time, is it worth it to take out that policy, to buy that policy from that independent company? And here's my question that nobody seems to ever be able to answer for me. It is easy to find out if you've been a victim of land fraud, whether it's your home or a vacant property. The hard part is getting it corrected. And does that company pay to get it corrected, or do they just notify you that it's happened? If they notify you that it's happened, it's not worth it. If they will actually pay to fix it, it may be worth it. But you can do several things to protect yourself. A number of different things. When somebody tries to steal land or a home, a lot of times they try to use a power of attorney to do it. So he was just talking about how when his daughter moved to China, how he signed via power of attorney. For Stewart Title to accept a power of attorney for a transaction, there's a number of steps that are taken to make sure that it's valid. If the person is elderly and signed a power of attorney because they were diagnosed with early stages of dementia, so I better give somebody power of attorney, we can take that. But we're also gonna need a doctor's note stating that she can't sign a more recent one because of her mental stability, her mental. So we can't just take your word for it. We have to have backup for that. People get so irritated when we ask for that because they don't wanna be bothered. That's the whole reason for the power of attorney. Well, we understand, but this is also, we're protecting you when we're asking for this, but because of all the extra steps they have to do, it doesn't feel like it. So just know, if you give one of your family members power of attorney, number one, if you're capable of signing another power of attorney, we're gonna ask you to come into our office and sign another one that is specific to the transaction only, that it's only for the sale of ABC property. And that way you can keep your original, whatever your attorney prepared for you. That's one of the things we do. Lately, we've had a whole bunch of vacant land fraud that's been happening, where somebody claims to be the owner of vacant land. Because that's a little bit harder to detect, we are now required to send an overnight letter to the address on the property tax records stating, here's your code, call me if you're selling this property with this code. And if they don't call, we can't close. Are tax records always correct? Nope. But we also can look up, if they're not correct, that's another flag though, because that means did somebody just buy it and was that fraudulent and now they're trying to sell it again because I did a fake deed, now it's in my name, so now I'm gonna sell it real quick and get some money. So if it's a recent transaction, that's another, we have to go back to the former person and say, okay, did you really sell it? Is that, so there's title companies take a bunch of steps to make sure when you're purchasing that it's not fraud. As an owner of property, what can I do to prevent somebody from taking my property? There's actually several things. One thing that somebody did that I think is genius, and it did save them, was they did a home equity line, even though their home was paid off, they did a home equity line of credit on their home. Just for $25,000. But guess what, if you go to sell it, if they went to try to sell it, they have to have all the information from that loan to get your, even, you don't have to draw on it, can have a zero balance. But they're not gonna be able to sell it because they don't have your information on that loan either. And that did save an elderly person in Galveston that had, and they had even forgotten that they had a line of credit on it. And that's what saved them. I can also unfortunately tell you that the 3 times we've been involved where it was an elderly person whose house was being sold and they were being taken advantage of, it was healthcare workers that were in the home that had become close to the care person and they were taking advantage of who they were supposed to protect. One of them pretended to be a spouse, saying that they were married. He had dementia. He was tickled to be married again. And if you talked to him on the phone, he would say he was married. And luckily, we just had a gut feeling and called the nursing home and they told us he was not married and got the family in Dallas involved in it. Or else she would have walked away with all of his, he wouldn't have even had money to finish his life out in the nursing home. Lost my train of thought. So that was one of the things of the home equity line of credit. The other thing is watch your mail. If somebody has filed a deed on your property, just like when you buy a house and your mailbox is flooded with congratulations on your home and don't you need an alarm system, if you start getting stuff in your mailbox like that, something's up. And you can call the county clerk or you can call the title company and say, can you check to see if, you know, something's been filed against my house? I can tell you that what is going to help, the only way to really prevent it, because I'm telling you that people who have been victims, it can cost $10,000 to get it corrected. $10,000. We have got to get the legislature to pass something, and I don't know what, that says if you've been a victim of fraud, somehow you can file an affidavit, you can file something that just negates that deed. What has happened in 2 cases that I know of is when a fraudulent deed was filed and they found out about it before the person sold, but there was still this fraudulent deed that was putting a cloud on their title. As part of the, whatever you call it, negotiations, but when they caught who was doing it, they got a lesser or a slap on the wrist if he signed the deed back over to remove the cloud. So what good does, you know what I'm saying? I mean, yeah, so now they just do it again and try not to get caught. So there has to be an inexpensive way for the victims to fix it, and right now there's not. Right now, a lot of times you have to hire an attorney to get it fixed, and there should be something the legislature can create that can be verified that you were a victim, whether it's via police reports or whatever, to get it fixed. So, y'all, that's,
You wanna talk about wire fraud?
well, wire fraud, just do not send money to anyone unless you have walked into a place and received wiring instructions in hand. Most title companies, Stewart Title still accepts cashier's checks for cash to close. Wire fraud, is happening when emails are intercepted. Because you can copy email addresses, so Scott can send you an email and it'll look like he's sending it to you, but he's not. And it looks, I've seen where my name was copied, and I'm like, okay, I would have been fooled. You always have to, number one, call the place and verify. You don't call the number on the email, you call from a number that you've looked up yourself online, going, no, I know this is the correct number. Or you walk into the office and get the wiring instructions in hand. That's the only way to make sure you're not a victim of that.
Now, when you do a real estate transaction, one of the required forms is a wire fraud warning from
Notice.
Texas Association of Realtors. So you'll see it from your agent, and then you're gonna see the title company send you emails that have got wire fraud warnings all over
Yeah,
them.
and that's why, like I said, I'm very thankful that we still accept cashier's checks. We do ask you to bring in, both part, not just the torn off part, but the part from the bank that shows that, it was withheld from, whatever account it was. And that helps us know that the cashier's check isn't forged, because of course that does happen occasionally. But honestly, that's only happened one time in all of my years. And then, but the other thing is that people then are afraid to give me their instructions. Like if you're selling something, I'm like, no, if you give me instructions in person, there's not gonna be fraud at that point. So that's why if you're selling a home, when you sign at closing, that's when you tell me where to send the money at that time. And we do that in person so that your funds will go to your account and there won't be fraud that way. But again, don't ever just send money via wire without calling a trusted person that you know is part of the transaction, speaking with them and verifying that, for sure. But the land fraud, like I said, we've gotta get with the legislature to protect that. And because like I said, these companies that are selling those policies, I don't know if that's like a credit check thing where you have to renew that every year. You know what I'm saying? I don't think it's like a title policy where you buy a property and you have a policy from the lifetime that you own the property. I think these policies that you can get to prevent fraud on your home, I think you have to renew that every year like a homeowner's insurance type thing. And that can be expensive. And normally people on fixed incomes don't have that extra funds to do that.
Well, as an illustration, the key thing is if you select a company, are they just gonna notify you? Because the
If so,
county clerk-
you're gonna know because of your mailbox.
Yeah.
Your
Are they gonna
mailbox is
notify
gonna
you,
know.
or are they gonna go to bat for you
Yeah.
and fight it? And most of the policies I looked at run about $150 a year. But you gotta renew it every year. And
Are they gonna fix it though?
that's
Or are
it.
they just gonna notify you?
So are you paying $150 a year to be notified, hey, somebody's
And you don't
contacted
need
county?
that because you'll know.
You know,
You will know.
so there are some policies out there that are more expensive through LifeLock, which will actually go to bat and
And
pay the legal
actually-
and go after them. So it's like anything else that you buy, you wanna read the fine print. One thing that they pointed out is if your property is in a family trust, according to this website, it's more difficult for them to steal
Well,
the title. in
yeah, they
family
can
trust.
still forge it,
Yeah.
but it'll be questioned more. Any deed that doesn't go through a title company is gonna be questioned when the property is examined. So when they go to sell it, normally, since these deeds aren't prepared by attorneys, they either use like the tax legal description. They're normally not smart enough to use the full legal description from the prior deed, which is what is truly transfers title. And so that's where a lot of times it'll come up. We'll recognize that this isn't correct. But I do believe that the legislature has to get involved to make an easy fix for people that it happens to.
Like, give an example of the cash deal that we have that was closing on a rush.
Yeah.
It was in a trust, land only, and we knew it wasn't fraud because they submitted their trust.
Documents.
Yes.
And nobody's gonna come in with a pile of trust documents if it's fraud. Because do they get mad? Well, I am the trustee, it says that. Well, I understand that, but what if you're not? We wanna see those trust documents before we close on it. So again, that is, trust documents, are excellent, if you have an LLC, if it's an investment property. The transfer on death deeds, you know, those aren't effective until you die, so those aren't really gonna help prevent any type of fraud, but I do recommend doing those, because it'll sure help your family on probate expenses. But on the same token, it's not gonna help with the fraud, the stealing of the property. I would make sure that your family members, when there's healthcare workers in your home ever, make sure all of your legal documents concerning your home are locked up. And they don't have access, because you don't want them to be able to copy the deeds.
Information.
Even though they can access them online, they're normally not smart enough to do that. The criminals aren't normally that good. Yes?
I had a thank you and a question. The thank you is that I never before imagined that an open line of equity at zero balance for 20 years, which I consider a loose end, actually serves as a form of protection.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Secondly, I'm probably confused about the role of title companies, which we all have paid to do what I thought was a search, a deed search, to make sure you got clear titles to sell or buy. What's their role in prevention of fraud, if any, because we're paying them for something more than,
When we're researching the history of the property,
yes ma'am?
if we can see unusual transfers, we're gonna question that, because we're issuing a policy to you in the amount of the sales price. So you're buying your home for $500,000, we have $500,000 on the line if we miss something. So if the buyer, if the seller doesn't really own the property, and you're taken advantage of after the fact, and that you're like, hey, somebody's saying they didn't really own the house and I just paid $500,000, we're on the hook for it.
Well, that's good to know, but where's my protection?
Your policy that you have.
But
The
is the
protection's
title,
historic.
Once
Yeah,
you
the
own the
protection's
property,
historic.
once you're the owner, the
Yeah.
title policy doesn't
Finished.
protect you. It happened during your ownership.
all right, thank you.
Yeah, does that make sense?
So,
Yeah.
so I'm. okay.
When you're buying, you're protected. Once you're the owner, that's when the fraud happens.
Gotcha, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I recently bought a house in Florida, and as you can imagine, scams are worse in Florida than they are
I can
here.
imagine,
But-
especially due to the high number of retirement, you know, and
Well,
all the
and people are out of
condos
state
and all that.
and things like that.
Yeah, yeah.
So title companies and mortgage brokers will not do anything other than an in-person close.
Which is interesting.
Yeah, and if you have a power of attorney, there's an attorney attached to it, not a person.
Yeah.
They want an officer of the court on the other side of it.
So, in Texas, it's not like that, and what's interesting and I'm a little shocked on Florida, because there's such a thing now as remote online notaries. So, it's not like it's not like an electronic signature.
Right.
It's basically like Zoom on steroids. Because, to even be able to start a session with a remote online notary, you have to answer what we consider light credit questions, like did you own a green truck in 2005 kind of thing? And I have been told that remote online notary is more secure than an in-person, because anyone can have a fake ID.
The point I was making is, it's not a law, it's not a rule, it's what all of the legitimate title and mortgage companies
Are doing, but that's what's shocking, because you would think that they would do the remote online notary, because that's even more secure.
I ended up with 2 plane tickets to Florida I hadn't planned on.
Now, see, that's interesting. That
Because I was
really
gonna give
is.
my daughter power of attorney, and they go, nope, you gotta pay a lawyer to do it, we won't accept it unless.
Because
or
of
you
all
in
the
person,
fraud.
all the fraud.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I did the wire transfer sitting at the conference table.
Because, well, but you
Again.
know, a lot of times you can't do that, because so many times banks now require you to go in person.
No.
Now, if it's a
We're fortunate
brokerage,
we could do it,
yeah,
yeah.
if it's a brokerage account, it's different, cause you know your brokerage, your guy, and you just call them and they do it. But remember, y'all, with AI now, somebody can call and you're gonna think it's Scott, and it's not. I mean, I have a 94-year-old dad. He wasn't taken, because he's pretty amazing to have his faculty still. But somebody called him saying, hey, Grandpa, I'm in jail, I need
Oh,
you
yeah.
to
Yeah, one of
do all
those.
this. And he went along with it, because he knew all of his grandkids call him Opa, not Grandpa.
Right.
He's like, this is my nobody calls me Grandpa. But on the same token, how many people, I mean, with AI now,
Yeah.
it's scary what can happen. And I wonder with brokerage, I guarantee you, they're gonna start sending you a PIN that you have to, to your cell phone or something to even
Oh, yeah, to
order.
do online and mine now, I have to have a pass key.
Passkey to do it, yep,
To do it.
yep, that's what, everything is getting like that. So, yeah, you have to be vigilant, you have to make sure your children also know. And I'm sorry, but until the legislature does something to fix it, I think if you own your home if you have a mortgage on the home, they're not paying off the mortgage, I haven't seen releases of liens forged from mortgage companies. Is that coming? Maybe, but I haven't seen that yet. But having a line of credit, it'll, and normally it doesn't cost you anything to do it. I mean, it may to do $100,000 one, but if you do like a 25, a lot of times the local banks will do that at no cost, so. Yes,
Yeah, help me understand, actually follow up with everything else. If I buy a house, and I bought our house in 2006, November 2006, went through a title company. And so I'm the owner,
right?
legal owner of that house.
Yes.
How can how can I lose that house under any circumstance if I have not done anything wrong and somebody else is causing the fraud?
You will, it's not that you'll lose it, you will go through worse than somebody stealing your social security number. It'll be a nightmare to unravel.
Yeah.
Well, that I don't even understand.
Yeah.
Help me understand that part. So you-
Because right now, there's not just an affidavit that you can sign saying that wasn't my signature on that deed. Because I got a copy of your deed, I said, oh, okay, I'm gonna put Charlie Brown, sold to Jane Matthews, sign Charlie Brown's name, they get a notary somehow to notarize it, sometimes that's forged too. They file that for record at the courthouse, at the county clerk's office, and now I'm the owner. Charlie doesn't own it anymore, per public records.
Okay, I'm just following on it. Let me hear.
I think what you're saying is there has to be legislation that says these documents can only be furnished by people like yourself, you know,
well,
as opposed to anybody can furnish
but-
it.
So Tony, I think what you're
Again,
driving at is, once they have that new document, they can sell it.
Right.
So they
And-
sell it. That's the problem between the person committing the crime and the person buying it.
Because his new title supersedes yours.
That's the part I don't understand. How
Yeah,
can it
that's
possibly
what she's saying, it's
supersede?
very simple once you steal
So
somebody's.
it's
identity.
happening on vacant land more than improved property.
No,
So it's
answer
happening when people are not, when it's not an owner occupied. So let's say you own some property in Huntsville. And you know, it's a lot.
The simplest term is.
It's a lot. Somebody is now building on it and they forged your name. You go up there to look at your lot and all of a sudden, there's a house on it and I never sold it, but the public records show that you sold it.
So it's robbery by pen by
It is,
somebody.
it is,
but
it
the
is
law-
theft, but you have to then file a police report, show that you didn't get paid, you know.
Are there penalties for fraud, I assume, that are state legislated, even in Texas?
Well, yeah, but again, you know, depends on,
It's not considered criminal,
Well,
it's civil.
well, it is no, it's criminal.
Yeah,
It is,
well, white
it
collar
is
crime
criminal,
doesn't get very bad, that's the problem.
but it's both. It is certainly both. It's a civil issue and it's
I think
criminal.
that's why you're saying we need legislation that specifically says you'll get 15 years for this, not a slap on the wrist.
Not only that though, but to fix it, these jokers shouldn't be able to have to sign a deed back to you to fix the public records.
Yes.
Because now there's a cloud on your title because they filed that document.
Well,
So
maybe
now
we-
you go to sell it and you can't sell it because Charlie sold it to me already.
Maybe we should hold the county clerk complicit, that'd change things.
Yeah. Well, but again, their job is to record, not to monitor.
Like I said,
Yeah.
Roger had a question.
Yes,
Sort of corollary to this experience of being on the other end of wire transfer. I think it's useful if you're going to get a wire transfer, create an account for it. Go to your bank and say, I'm expecting a wire transfer, open this account. The minute the wire transfer comes in, close the account. Because your banking information is out there with the routing and an account number and everything else for the incoming transfer. So if you just create it, I've done this a number of times, it works like gangbusters, costs nothing. You go to the bank and say, I've got a wire transfer coming in for $100,000, open this account, right. Minute that $100,000 hits the account, close the account, transfer that to my savings
because you don't
account or
want that
something.
other person to have your banking information.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I've never even thought of that.
I've been advised similarly, but, I'm dealing with some land out of state.
Yeah.
And,
Whenever you're not owner occupied, that's the,
well, this is acreage that we lease.
right.
And there's joint ownership.
Mhm.
Been in the family for over 100 years too, so.
Mhm.
Our bank has advised us in that regard to open an account, open a zero balance savings account in our, we both have numerous accounts with the bank. Open a zero balance account, have all the transfer funds wired into that account. That way you have a number for that account, and the seller or the buyer has a place to put the money. And our contact with the bank can advise us.
Yeah, and I know that other, states do it differently, where in Texas, it's the title company that holds all the money and disperses all the money.
There's some money floating around,
Yeah.
In escrow accounts and things like that, but
Yeah,
the
yeah.
real money, it will be done.
Yeah, if it's done directly between the parties, I would
Our-
absolutely
our
open new
law-
accounts.
His
Right.
lawyer and our lawyer are
Yep, and
doing,
those are,
doing that, we're not using
Yeah.
brokers, it's, we're selling the family farm
yep,
to a, commercial developer.
gotcha. Yep, and so it makes a lot of sense to when you're dealing with that, to have brand new accounts.
We,
Yeah.
the bank, that's what the bank has advised us to do.
Yeah.
On the sidebar, you mentioned the PIN or whatever for the transfer.
Yeah, yeah.
My son needed a bridge loan on his car because his Tesla got totaled and the insurance company wasn't coming across the money, and he had a new one. He's got a deal on a
Yeah.
new one, so he needed some. We both had to go down to the bank and sit down, and we both had PIN numbers.
Is it that, and you're sitting next to
We're
each
sitting
other?
there.
Yeah,
It's kinda silly.
yeah.
They send us the PIN number.
But that's again, to know that you are the
We
correct person.
respond to it on the
Yeah.
phone, and then we take the keyboard in her office and move it over, and I type it in and give it to him. He types it in. And
Isn't
then,
that something?
the money moved very
Yeah,
smoothly, but,
yeah.
and no charges, but it was, there was a lot of identification going on.
Yeah, you have to now.
I would say 3-factor at least.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, moving forward with us. Right now, the legislature is shut down for another 2 years, thank God, but in Texas.
Yeah.
Unless it's real.
Well, anyhow, nothing's gonna happen for 2 years in Texas. So, as they say to everybody, check your credit reports yearly or every so often. Do you suggest maybe contacting the county clerk's office to check on your property every so
Really,
often?
if it's owner occupied, you will know, because your mailbox will be
Understand.
flooded. It's when you own property that is not owner occupied is when you really, where we have seen the majority of the issues.
Mhm.
Whether it's vacant land or investment homes, either one.
So-
That's where you see the majority, 95% of the fraud occurring.
So check with your county clerk of wherever the property is located,
To see if there's been anything filed against it.
yes.
Yep, if it's owner occupied, you don't have to, because like I said, you would know because of your mailbox.
Back to the question I asked, that I understand, I would not lose my house, but I would have a mess trying to get it
Yes.
straightened out. Okay, well, I think this problem is so much bigger than it's being dealt with legally, is that the majority of the people, their house is the majority of or a high percentage of their net worth, if
Yeah,
not all
yeah,
of their net
right,
worth.
right.
So when
Especially
it happens
today.
to a
Yeah.
poor person, they probably don't have as much legal resources to fight it.
No,
I
they
can't
don't.
understand, hopefully in their case, they don't lose it either, but, I don't understand why the crime is considered a misdemeanor crime versus a felony, because the penalty doesn't.
I think it
penalty
also
doesn't-
depends on the value too.
No, the
Right.
penalty doesn't match.
No,
The penalty for doing this, houses are almost all of them are over $100,000.
you can't buy
I mean,
anything
they're
for
not-
$150.
They're not minor.
Nothing.
I don't understand
Yeah.
why the penalty doesn't match the crime. If the penalty was greater,
Talk to your
Would-
state legislator.
that would-
in
that
2
would-
years.
help deter it rather than
Well,
making
imagine-
it, it's making a
Yeah,
lot of
but
money
this-
for lawyers. is
But
what
the
this is
one
doing.
that I was helping the attorney get unraveled with, and, cause we found the person who notarized we had gone through all of that, he had filed the police report, and the guy got like 6-month probation, but yet it cost these people $10,000 to get it fixed. And it's like that, I mean, is that right? Absolutely not. And that's why until the legislature allows a property owner, and I don't know what they would have to sign to say that this other document is forged and, should be, erased from the public records. That part I don't know, but there has to be something simpler to fix it.
Question. what is the prevalence of this crime in Texas? In
It's
terms of
it's
ever getting anybody's attention, number one. Number two, what is our general risk as a population of land property owners in Texas for this kind of crime? How often does it occur? Yearly?
Well, I mean, it's been happening a lot lately in vacant land.
But we
We
don't have-
haven't, how prevalent, like percentage, that part I have no idea.
Yeah.
But I know that this year, there are some title companies who will not close on vacant land. That's how,
But we don't
How
know
bad-
but we're not quite clear in this group what the prevalence of this crime is in Texas.
yeah, that, I
That's
guess you could look
interesting,
up the stats.
Because that is exacerbating the crime.
Yeah.
If you're not doing it, it means nobody's
They're-
got,
they're-
got as you
Well,
people to do it.
because they've
so-
gotten bit, because
so-
they had to
well,
pay.
yeah, but what it means is that it's not unusual for a document to be filed not without a title company.
Mhm.
So, you know, the clerk of court said, well, it isn't unusual, this is the way all land is
Yeah,
transacted.
a lot of those are the what I call the mom and pop
Mom and
title
pops, yeah, yeah.
title companies that we were talking about that aren't. So Stewart Title is like, there's title companies and then there's underwriters, right? So Stewart Title, obviously, there's Stewart Title Guarantee and we're our own underwriter.
Well, most of
Fidelity
us use
is,
you,
out-
not-
you know, but
yeah.
I'm just saying, and it's these smaller title you know, Capital Title, University Title. I mean, there's there's 100 of them. All of those have underwriters and they're like, we can't, for the premium of $700, we're not gonna take the chance of having to pay out $85,000. And it is so prevalent for vacant land, it's like, oh, no, mail that to me, I'll sign papers elsewhere. We can't do any of that on vacant land anymore. You come into our office to sign, or you can do remote online notary. We're not even sending mobile notaries to you.
The FBI in 2023 have recorded 9,521 real estate fraud complaints nationwide with losses of $145 million.
This is an act that the Attorney General might be doing himself. It ain't gonna get his attention.
Yeah, really.
For sure.
This is like.
Go back and think, I've dealt with a lot of county clerks. I've spent my major career in the government business. And I find it appalling that the clerks are so blasé about handling these things.
Well, but
When
how
I-
do
when I
they know
get-
if something's forged though?
I've dealt with, well, you start looking at I've dealt with cars and motorcycles and trucks and equipment, and had fine-tooth combs run over titles, and the titles were legitimate. Particularly if you're dealing out of state or anything, they read the whole documents, the whole document package.
Right.
And now it's been 25, 30 years since I've been in a title company researching a deed. But, there used to be a lot of research went on, and it seems to have evolved.
Oh, and so much of it is overseas now too, and the
Oh.
research is handled overseas.
You can sign up for alerts, by the way, free property alerts.
Yep.
Just go to your assessor, recorder, county clerk's office, and you can go online and sign up for alerts in case to find out if someone's trying to take your, and it's free.
County tax assessor's office.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It's just
Annie J. McClure.
And on the tax office also, on the appraisal district website, if you take your name off of it, it'll be a little harder for someone to find.
You can't just
Well-
do that though.
Well, some of them are allowing it. If you
Okay.
say that, like, there's like protected categories and you can just
Like
say.
Jason.
Police
did that.
officers are protected, judges, different elected officials are protected.
Yeah, but I mean, I've known that women saying that, you know, they don't want an
Oh.
ex-husband to
Yes.
find
Yes,
them and
that
stuff,
too.
so, you know, you.
Isn't a lawyer has left, but a question I have on liability, is the county, is there anybody liable at the county for allowing fraud paperwork to go through?
Cause they didn't notarize it, they're just recording the document that's provided to them.
Sovereign immunity kicks in.
Yeah.
We're gonna give the lawyers a kick on liability issues.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, they're not gonna be liable, you know that.
Well, thank you very much.
You're so
and
welcome.